You have joined will be starting momentarily. Okay, welcome to the C3.ai Digital Transformation Institute information session about the third call for proposals. This is the first of several on this topic. So I think most of you know about the C3.ai Digital Transformation Institute. This will be a very brief introduction to us. We are a group of universities that are working together to attract the world's leading scientists to join in a coordinated and innovative effort to advance the digital transformation of business, government, and society. But we're not just universities, we are also industry, and we are collaborating together on multiple different efforts. The available funding for this third call for proposals is up to about $10 million. And these are all one-year funding efforts, ranging from 100,000 to 1 million. And everyone who is funded will get access to the C3.ai suite hosted on the Microsoft Azure cloud. Eligibility is very important to understand. The proposal PIs, that is to say the lead PI for each proposal, must be faculty researchers at the consortium partner institutions. The co-PIs can be from other locations. Preference will be given to proposals where the majority of the work in the expenditures occur at the consortium partner institutions. C3.ai DTI strongly encourages interdisciplinary and interinstitutional proposals, as well as proposals that connect with other universities and institutions around the world. Everyone should realize that if you submit a proposal to the solicitation, not only the lead PI, but the co-PIs as well will be asked to review proposals for this review process. So, what is this third call for proposals about? It is AI to transform cybersecurity and secure the critical infrastructure. What I'm reading to you now is from the webpage, and you can refer to it, but it says, the pace, volume, and sophistication of attacks against our information infrastructure, networks, and our critical infrastructures are accelerating, leading to substantive hacking, disruptions, and penetrations of our government, defense, and private sector information systems and energy, telecommunications, financial, water, and other critical infrastructure. Advanced AI and machine learning techniques present an opportunity to bring new tools and methods to detect, explain, and respond to previously unknown attack vectors, leading to better security of IT systems, OT systems, and critical infrastructures. This third C3.ai DTI call for proposals is to solicit proposals for funding primary research to advance the science of AI and digital transformation in cybersecurity, with a focus on hardening information security, i.e. InfoSec, and securing critical infrastructure. Now, there are 13 areas of interest, and I'm going to read them, but I want you, when you're thinking about submitting a proposal, think about what you really want to do and how it connects to the high-level goal, and then look to see where in these different topics you can really explain the connection. So these are examples of things we're looking for. AI techniques to identify previously unknown malware, ransomware, and zero-day vulnerabilities, enabling isolation and neutralization. AI-enabled network and system crawlers that can continuously search and identify persistent access mechanisms, i.e. backdoors, bots, remote access toolkits, rats, stagers, and Trojans. AI forensics and attribution techniques to identify sources of attacks. AI techniques to automate simulated adversarial attacks to identify system and network vulnerabilities. AI techniques to accurately identify and enable the neutralization of phishing attacks. The next four, Change management techniques to prevent the weaponization of innocent insiders. AI techniques to detect the presence of advanced persistent threats and insider threats. AI-enabled network and/or system crawlers that access and continuously evaluate system security levels. AI techniques, perhaps in supervised or unsupervised learning, to provide early detection of system and/or network anomalies that might be indicative of unauthorized access, denial of service, or data exfiltration. And now the last 4 from this itemized list. Techniques and methods to enable the development of AI algorithms that are resilient to adversarial attacks. AI techniques to identify concentration risk in the software and computer supply chain. Change management to transform organizational behavior to manifest best practices in cyber hygiene, and techniques to respond to attacks at the organizational and societal level. Now, remember, these are just examples. So whatever you're thinking about, if you can make the case, do it. Some of the summary things you need to bear in mind, again, the PI, that is the lead PI, must be from one of the C3.ai DTI institutions. Those are the academic institutions. The project must use the C3.ai suite. This is a requirement. PIs and co-PIs agree to serve as reviewers. So everyone you list as a PI or a co-PI will be asked to review proposals. And you are encouraged to recommend reviewers within EasyChair for your own proposal. Just make sure they have no obvious conflict of interest. Funding total of 10 million, one-year proposals with no indirect costs allowed. Key dates: submission deadline in EasyChair is February 7th. Decisions will be in March, and the funding start will be approximately June 1. Although C3.ai Suite is required, there's no prior experience necessary, and our DevOps team is available for consultation, and you can even embed the members in your proposal at no cost. Projects that leverage other sources of funding are welcome. Some review criteria. Again, the proposals must use the C3.ai Suite. The peer review process will look at scientific merit, the prior accomplishments of the PI and co-PIs, the use of the AI, ML, data analytics, and cloud computing resources that we're making available, and suitability for testing methods at scale. And again, the DevOps team is available to assist, and they're very, very good at providing that assistance. So submission and timeline, everything is done in EasyChair. If you have used EasyChair before, you know very much what it's like. If you haven't, suggest you go and look at it so you find out how to use it. You will find a template within the EasyChair site that you should use to prepare your proposal. And then you save your proposal as a PDF and upload the entire PDF as a single proposal within EasyChair. There's a deadline of 11:59 p.m. Pacific time, February 7th. Awards will be announced again in March, start dates around June. And you can ask our proposals at C3DTI.ai team for assistance and ask them questions about whatever is relevant. This is the first of the information sessions. You will find the links for the others. And there are weekly office hours with the DevOps team. And those you can get to through this other Zoom call at different times listed here. By the way, this PowerPoint is available. And so you don't need to write down these links right now. We'll make them available. The full details on this call for proposals are at this link. And the questions, again, can be sent to proposals@c3dti.ai. I want to briefly talk about the computing resources. Again, all awardees are given access to the C3.ai Suite and the C3.ai Ex Machina. The platforms include low and no code AI deployments, scalable data and processing from multiple dynamically updated data sources, schedule and event-based processing, Jupyter Notebook support, and visualization dashboards. The DTI staff at Berkeley and Illinois will support your use of the C3.ai technology in many different ways, including consultation, and you can have people join your teams. I'm being a bit repetitive because some of the important things you need to hear more than once. Scientific computing at NERSC, which is part of the Berkeley Lab, National Energy Research Scientific Computing Center. 75 million hours of computing resources are available. NCSA here at Illinois, and Microsoft Azure. So I'm going to turn this over now for questions and answers. And we have the C3.ai leadership, Shankar Shastri, Shrikant can answer questions as well. And we have some members of the DevOps team as well. So now's the time for questions. And you can pose your question to any of us. It doesn't matter. If you prefer to put your question in the chat, you can do that. But otherwise, we can answer questions. You can unmute and just ask a question.
Who are the member or partner institutions?
Oh, sorry, that was one of the early lists. Shall I share screen again? Let's see.
You can just say them. So it's Berkeley.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead. But I'm going to show them so that people can see, because it's actually easier for them if we have it visually. There it is. Okay. Okay, CMU. Okay, the ones within this country: CMU, MIT, Princeton, Stanford, Berkeley, University of Chicago, Illinois. Okay, and then there's also KTH, which is in Sweden, Berkeley Lab, and NCSA.
Thank you.
We want you to be successful in your proposals, so we really encourage you to talk with us. If you have questions about suitability of an idea, we're very happy to talk with you about it. Basically, we want to see research that's really relevant submitted so that we can fund it.
Candy, you're going to talk about if it's a big proposal.
About the big proposal?
Yeah.
Well, you know, Shankar, I think maybe this is something you would like to talk about.
Okay, so you know, what's conceptualized is certainly proposals of different sizes. If you've got something big in mind, I think we'd be happy to talk to you about this. It's not a requirement, but you know, it's certainly Shrikant's here, Candy's here, Kosa's not here. We're all glad to talk to you about how to structure it, and there is so. That's
yeah, I think just to add to it, I think in the past we have said proposals should range from 100 to 500K first time and 100 to 250K the last time. But then this time we are allowing $1 million proposal. So I think if you're really thinking of something over 500K, it's you know, you could talk to us to see, you know, what should be the extent and the scope of it.
So there's a question in the chat asking, can we talk about the acceptance rates? I don't know if we're posting that or if we've even calculated it. Shankar, do you want to comment?
I think on the first call, there were a lot of proposals on the first call, on the COVID call. On the second one, I think, you know, we funded about 20 out of 65 or 70 submissions. So that's about 30%. So that's those are the statistics. The first one, it was 26 out of 180. So
one of the things to bear in mind is that sometimes proposals are not selected because they're not using the C3.ai suite. So it's really important to watch the requirements and make sure you're eligible. Okay, eligibility is one of the things that has been an issue. The question from Ben Zhao, is there a sense of preference for more generalizable techniques and studies, or those more tied to specific operating contexts and domain constraints? I think you're getting at impact. So there's different kinds of impact. And if you can make the argument that you'll have high impact in a particular arena, but it will be high, that's great. If you can make the claim that you're going to have generalizable impact, that's also great. I mean, the point is, whatever it is you really want to do, explain the impact. Remember, it's a 1-year grant proposal. It's not more, right? 1 year. So what can you do in 1 year that's believable, and what's that impact going to be? What expenses can be included? No indirect costs, just salary and benefits. You know, I think that it's not just salary and benefits. It's, you know, if you need to travel to bring the group together, that's legitimate. If there's stuff that's specific to the project and it's not, you know, salary, it's legitimate. You just have to make the case.
Indirect cost means overhead, you know, it's specifically overhead. I think what is needed to get the research done, I think we are flexible. That's what Tandy's saying.
Right.
Candy, this is Larry. I'll add on the call for proposals page, there's a budget and budget justification section that spells out what expenses are allowable. So that would be helpful.
I would say one thing that we've seen is if you put in a request for equipment, and the equipment is clearly like a long-term major expense, it doesn't usually go over as well because it's not really for that project. It's for, you know, something much longer term. So think about what's needed for a 1-year project. And again, remember that the majority of the expenses really should be within the member institutions. So what works well is if you're collaborating between 2 or 3 of the member institutions and most of the funds are going there, you might also have another institution that's involved that's not one of the members. As long as the total amount that's not going to the member institutions is under 50%, it will not raise eyebrows in the same way. The majority really needs to be at the member institutions. More questions?
Yeah, Tandy, this is David Nickel. I'm wondering if, you know, given that the duration is a year, which is relatively short in our space, should we be thinking of these as seed grants and be making the case that this is going to seed further activity applying to federal agencies, things like that?
It could be, but if the entire effort is just so that you can get data that you can then use for another grant, I don't think that goes over as well as saying, we have an idea, we have some work already that shows that this is getting somewhere and we're going to use it and get somewhere in this 1 year. Another point though is if you already have a grant that is related to this and you want to supplement the effort with something that's specific for this call, but would build on what you already have funding for, that is fine. That's something to think about. So you can also think of like building on something you're already doing. It doesn't have to be disjoint.
Let me add color to what David. Let me add color to what Kenny's saying. I think that you know so the first thing that she said, you know, the projects need to be a little bit shovel ready. In that, you know, in academia, sometimes we get a grant and we sit on it for 6 months to plan what we're going to do. So that I think we like people to sort of be ready to work. Having said that, I think we're pretty agnostic as to basic, applied, you know, that kind of those one of the other questions. And in terms of the year, I think initially we certainly started with thinking of these as seed grants so that you could then build on top of it. But as you get to these larger numbers, you know, it's not really seed money, you know, and you know, certainly to an academic community, grants without overhead, which are over $250K, are really decent sized grants to make a dent. And I think it's the intent of the funders that some of the problems that you saw in the call are, they're longstanding problems, but I'd like to make a dent on it. People have been working on attribution a long time. People have been working on attacking AI algorithms for a long time. But I think that impact is really a metric.
Yeah, I completely agree with what Shankar said. Let me just add one more point, which is if you in fact do want to use it as a way of finding out if something that you have been thinking about is going to work, just aim for the lower end of the budget so that it's, it may be high risk, but it won't be the same kind of, impact. As Shankar says, if you're going for the higher end, you really better have something in place that you can do. And remember, the funding would start soon, right?
Good, that's all very helpful. Thanks.
Sure. More questions? So we're taking questions from the audience, and you can ask them directly or you can put them into the Q&A.
And Tandy, you want Matt and any of the DevOps people, if they want to say something, you want to invite them in to say something?
Yeah, I think that they're welcome to speak now or just answer questions. I know some people joined a little late and so might have missed things that we've already covered, but just go ahead and ask questions and we'll answer them.
I also want to add one thing, that if you did join late and you want to look at what Tandy said at the beginning, this webinar is being recorded and it'll be on our YouTube channel. So if you go there, this will be available soon.
And the slides themselves are also available even faster. If you want them, just email me and I'll send them. Okay, Ben is saying, can you talk a bit about the peer review process? How much of the decision process is made by peer review and how much by decision makers later in the evaluation process? Okay, I think it's a lot like NSF, having been a program officer at NSF. You get peer reviewed. You get reviewed according to all the criteria. You get enough reviews that we are informed by those reviews, which is one of the reasons why we very much encourage you to recommend reviewers with email addresses. After the peer review is received, the leadership, that includes the four of us, Kostas and I and Shankar and Shrikant, will look through all of the reviews and we will discuss them. We will read the proposals and we will take all of this into consideration and make recommendations. And then there is a larger group that makes additional recommendations. So it's a multi-stage process.
Yeah, and if I could just add a little color to what Tandy said. So, we do want to, peer review is great. So we don't want to give up on peer review and we do want to trust the opinions of peers. But as all of us in the academic community know, the concern about using peer review exclusively is that sometimes our peers are very hard on speculative ideas and things which are, a little bit out of the norm. So one of the things we wanted to do is to allow for some proposals that get clobbered in the peer review to be kept going, and I think that's part of it. And the other part of it is, and I'll say this because we're not eligible to participate in this, but we want to be sure that it's not just people proposing algorithms in theory, but also trying out experiments at scale and on data, real data, preferably real data or data. And that's the reasons for really making sure that you not only have the algorithms, but also they get so it's like NSF, but maybe we want to sort of fix some of our concerns about what peer review can do. And you can imagine that, the federal government has more stringent adherence to, the voices of the people, but we'd like to. So
maybe it's a little bit closer to NIH in that the program officers at NIH can actually end up picking things that didn't score as well and funding them if they can make the case. But actually NSF can do that too. It's just that you may not know it. So what you should plan on is it's a short proposal. These are not long proposals. If you look at the instructions, it's just a few pages. So the amount that you put together is not as much of an effort. But make the case and talk about definitely how you'll use the C3.ai suite, because that's one of the requirements. And we'll be happy to talk with you before you submit about your ideas to help them, fit this call for proposals. Okay, so do any of the DevOps people want to say anything, for example, about the kinds of support you provide?
Sure, Tandy. I'm Matt Kravchuk. I'm a member of the DevOps team, along with Yifang, who's also on the call. I could just talk very briefly about some of the things we do. Generally, we do consultations with groups. So as Tandy mentioned, we have weekly office hours where groups can come and discuss issues they're having, either at this point in the process where if they have an idea they want to see whether, how it can use the C3 system most effectively, that's the best place to come and ask us. And I do encourage everyone to come to our office hours, ask us questions. And if, there's a lot of interest in office hours, we can add additional office hours, or we could schedule time, one-on-one time with your group and figure it, if you're worried about like the confidentiality or something like that of your idea at this point of the process. And so we do that kind of consultation, and we also do a more embedded type development with groups. And maybe Yifang, who's done a little more of that, maybe you can say a thing or two about that process.
Yes, hi, this is Yifang, and I'm a colleague of Mackay and everyone. Hi, so for the more embodied version, I think this is more like starting from the beginning of the call will be the best. Like starting right now, you can come to the office hour and reach out to us and let us know your project or your plan or your workflow strategies. So then we can discuss about discuss all together to form during the office hour or even extra office hours if needed, to help you to have a basic idea how to make your thoughts or your plan or your strategy or your workflow into your actual programming workflow, starting from the proposal period or the office hour period, and then slowly developing to matching the three infrastructures, and that will be the basics of the more embodied version of the supporting.
Yeah, if folks don't mind, I can just spend 5 minutes sort of outlining what sorts of resources C3 offers.
And Matt, can you also talk about the course you've developed, Matt?
Oh yeah. So okay, so I'll do those 2 points. So just generally speaking, C3.ai Suite is a platform as a service. So it lives in the Azure cloud, and it supports all kinds of functionality for, primarily, it started as a kind of industrial engineering type database system, but with some extra very nice flavors. So for example, you develop a data model that your data, rather than, sometimes you might have multiple, like multiple database backends, like a SQL table or Cassandra database or something like that, and then you have to do a lot of work to string together all these pieces when you want to do analysis. But C3 tries to bring all that together in a way that's much easier to work with as a data analyst. So you write a kind of object-oriented description of your data, and then C3 handles how that data is stored internally, and then you can just write quick calls to retrieve the data and analyze it. So from like a data scientist perspective, or, from my perspective, that, I did a lot of work in high energy physics, for example. We work with I worked with like binary data sets, and having to write C++ code, compiling it, and then run it on submitting jobs on like a Torque supercomputer, right? In this environment, you're working on conceptualizing your data, putting it into a cloud service, and then writing jobs to launch different like nodes in the cloud to analyze the data. And that's why, this is a different process to what's in some fields. And so that's why we're putting so much emphasis for people that come to office hours. We need to discuss your problem and like see how it can best use the C3 infrastructure. But all that said, one of the really cool aspects of C3 is they have all of this web endpoint technology. So, you can instrument your data model with like methods, and that those methods can be exposed with like a HTTP endpoint. So you can like, you don't have to worry about some amount of, I know you guys are security researchers, so you'll understand the issues with exposing, a web server and having people, hit that endpoint. But, C3 is trying to do some of that itself for you, so you don't have to worry about too much of that. And then also it allows the creation of web pages to analyze data as it's coming in. So you can create an application which is actively ingesting data and then updating an analytics page. So again, this is like a high level description of some of the things that there is on offer. And we recommend you to come to office hours, and we can give you a much more detailed picture of what you can and can't do, and what we expect sort of in the proposals.
I think it's worth actually letting you know that the DevOps team does part of the evaluation. So when we're looking at the science, we're looking at the impact, we're looking at the investigators, but we're also looking at the readiness to use C3.ai and what's been said about how it's going to be used. So the DevOps team is helping understand that and evaluate it. It's very, very valuable to talk with them.
Hey, Matt, you were going to talk about your short course.
Yes, that's right. So we're in the process of writing a, you might say, quick start into C3. So, as I described, C3 is a lot different than a lot of folks are used to. So, we're working on first of all, we've written a lot of tutorial pages that are available on the NCSA wiki page. So you can, they're all publicly available now, so you can browse them. Let me, I think, I don't know, Jay, you can put a link to that in the chat if folks are interested. These pages are meant to streamline your jumping onto working with C3.ai. And as far as the short course goes, I'm working on combining an introduction to machine learning along with once people who is geared towards maybe even industry folks who've maybe never had experience, but also the goal was for people who've already are machine learning practitioners, maybe learn a thing or two as well. So there's a first part of that course which is geared towards the basics of machine learning, and then the next part of that course is an introduction to C3 and like how you might bring a data set into the platform and use the platform's systems to analyze it in its specific way. So it's Shankar, does that sound like what you're looking for? Yeah.
Okay, I just want to say that Bo had a question as well. So the question is in the chat. It says, do we have some concrete restrictions for the critical infrastructure? For instance, does medical autonomous driving face recognition type of system count? Or does it need to be energy water level of defense systems? And I think that the answer is general, but I'm going to let Shankar or Shrikant answer that one.
Absolutely. I think all infrastructures are financial infrastructures, you know, I mean, I think we didn't mention it here, but, you know, if you think that blockchains and attacks against blockchains and all of that are important. I see there's colleagues at Illinois who we worked with on personal medical records and security of personal medical records and attacks of those. It's all fair game. You know, we are pretty agnostic, to be honest, about. But you know, possibility of impact is really.
Yeah. So we got some new people joining, and you may want to just ask a question completely that you think is already answered, but please just ask. Also, if you joined recently, you won't even see the things that were listed earlier. Hey, Jay, could you just copy again into the chat the links that will help people find the slides, find the webpage for the call for proposals, and the email address for asking questions? So if you want to ask a question, you can just unmute and ask your question, or you can put it in the chat. Both are fine.
I just want to emphasize one thing. I mean, we talked a lot about the use of C3.ai platform, and that's absolutely critical. But equally important is the scientific merit of the proposal. Proposals have been rejected for lack of scientific merit or the lack of, large-scale data and how you can utilize the C3.ai/Azure platform. So both are equally important. So we don't want to give the impression that, it's just as long as you use the C3.ai platform, that's sufficient. I mean, we want to talk a lot about it just to make sure that that's an important component of the proposal, that we have a lot of resources available for you to figure out how to use it. But I think scientific merit is equally important.
Yeah, and in fact, innovative AI and ML is really exciting, and we're often very impressed by this and looking for it. So more questions?
So if I understand you correctly, let's say we come up with a problem where we think we can use AI and ML, and then you can provide people who know how to use C3.ai suite to implement it. Is that right?
Okay, so let me.
Do my students need to learn C3.ai?
This is a really good question, and this is where getting an embedded person from DevOps into your project is going to help you. But this is where you should have a direct discussion, and there are the office hours, and there's also that email. But let me have, again, the DevOps people say very briefly, what's the idea? Like, what is the most embedded you've been, and what's sort of the idea that you have of like how embedded you could be to answer this question?
Yeah, I could just start first. I have mostly been on the kind of training material side of things, so I haven't specifically worked with specific groups yet. But Yifang, I think, has been working a lot with a group, so he could say a little more.
Yeah. So for that answer, I will say you will still need a student to learn the platform for sure. But I will be the one who. So if we have an embodied member in your team, so that person, it could be me or anyone of the member in the DTI to help you to targeting anything that is as a blocking point to blocking you from getting your research goal. So that way we basically will be pushing the blocking point to make sure that things do not block you. That's our that's our embodied work of doing it. We will actually write some code to help you to unblock the road, and we will help you to reach out people who can potentially help you to find the way using the platform to help.
Yifang and the other Matt Podolsky, I know you're on both of the call. But just to be specific, maybe it could be useful to talk about maybe how you supported two recent projects. Maybe Yifang, you can talk about that Madden-Julian oscillation, which I think NCSA and LBL and And I think it is. So that's one. And then Matt, you can talk about seaweeds and reinforcement learning and all of that if you want. Or choose anything else, but just choose a specific project and how it is.
Yeah,
involved.
I can talk a little more and then let others talk more. So I was be able to help a research team who have 45 members who learned how to use C3 platform, and they worked with me together to make out the project. Is there make the whole workflow be able to running on the C3 platform, and I was involved to mainly to guide them from initially they probably don't know anything about the C3 platform towards the end that they are able to fluently using them and complete the tasks that they want. And for that one is they have been using the RESTful API features on the C3 platform. Yeah.
I want to just point out that Carl also has a question he put in the chat. So Carl, do you want to speak up and ask your question?
Yeah, I guess it's notoriously difficult to get good data sets to validate ideas for security work. And I wondered if C3.ai can offer any help with that.
And I don't know the answer. So I'm wondering if Shankar or Shrikant know the answer.
I don't think we have any data sets right now, but for the very first call, we made a data lake available with data sets, but
yeah, and the short answer is I think they're going to work on trying to get some data sets, and we are involved in active dialogue with both DHS and other parts of the U.S. government to get sets, which Carl, you may remember, we're working on it. So they don't have a definitive answer, but we are working on it.
Yeah, that's more likely to be an impediment in some cases than the actual computing hardware or artificial intelligence. Yeah,
we agree. So as some people on this call know, maybe you also, Carl. There's the Venki Lee and others at Georgia Tech have sort of started doing this. So we've been talking, but we're talking to the DHS types also and the folks up in other government agencies also about populating. Yeah, I'm with you. We're with you. We're on this.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Any other?
Oh, yeah.
Podolsky, you going to say something, Matt? The other Matt.
Let me just jump in real quick because there was an important point that Yifeng and I think Shankar or somebody or maybe Shrikant brought up. One of the most important roles that the DevOps folks play is informing C3 of issues that we run into. So weekly we have meetings with C3 personnel, and if there's an issue for your group, it's our job to bring it up with them and push them to make sure it gets solved as soon as possible. I mean, things happen, and maybe a problem isn't. Maybe you expose some little thing that's not quite that C3 is not quite handling right or something. There's always there can sometimes be things, and our job is to help you guys get through that any of those types of issues.
Yeah, and I can just speak on another project that we've been on the second call for proposals, working closely with the researchers team and collaborating with the DevOps team and DTI. And that's a team that's using a lot of ocean data in the Gulf of Mexico. So they're pulling data, both historical and predicted data sets in order to run a simulation of path planning for basically a floating seaweed bed with minimal inputs and controls to get it from point A to point B. So it's kind of thing where it helps them to have both a large amount of data and historical data at different time ranges, as well as run a lot of simulations. So they came in with a Jupyter Python-based simulator and ability to pull the data directly, but one limitation of the sort of data source site is that it only stores predictions 5 days out for as of the current day, and then it stores a week worth of those before just sort of not making them available anymore. And so for purposes of running as many simulations and having rich data set as possible, the first thing we did was work with them to be able to pull in an archive of these data sets stored kind of in Azure blob storage, but catalog the existence and location of those data sets within the C3 platform and run and execute the gets to grab the data so that we can help them build that up as well as more easily access it. And they've now transitioned to having done that to actually running their simulator in the C3's owned instance of the Jupyter server. And so, we've worked hand in hand with them on, checking code into GitHub, making modifications to their existing code and developing that the right types and functions and methods to pull that data and sort of build up their archive material of data for their project.
So I think you should get the sense that the DevOps team will work with you and help you. But talking with them early is going to be very helpful. And remember, the deadline is February 7th. So your submission, getting it started is a good idea. Think about who you'd like to recommend for reviewers so that we can make sure we get extra reviews for you. And what other questions would you like to ask?
Will there be a meeting of the people who are participating?
You mean people who get funded?
Yeah.
Oh, I think the answer for that is yes, but I'm not sure when.
Well, we might, we hope, if all goes well, Carl, I think we are hopeful that we'll invite the winners to a award ceremony, Omicron, Gamma, Delta, whatever willing, in the end of March in Miami. And after that, the Institute has will have both the annual, we actually are planning 2 sort of group meetings a year. And one of those will be in Miami, of course. And then we'll probably have one, we were thinking in the Midwest, maybe in the Chicago, Illinois region, or maybe on the East Coast. Is that right, Shrikant? The late summer, early fall. So
Yeah.
Okay.
I think there are also workshops, colloquia, all kinds of events where people who get funded will be featured, and also people who are not funded. Lots of opportunities to let people know about your work.
Okay, so if there are
Tandy, maybe you can plug next week's session. If people want, because Kostas will do the session, maybe it's slightly different. And
okay, just remember that this was the first of the 2 informational sessions. There will be another one next week. Kostas Spanos from Berkeley will be presenting it, and it's going to be on Wednesday.
at 1 o'clock.
It says 3 to 4 p.m. local time. 3 to 4 p.m. local time.
3 p.m. local, 3 p.m. for you guys.
3 to 4.
Yeah, 3 to 4. Oh, sorry. Yeah, sorry.
So,
nice job, Tandy.
Good.
Running this meeting.
Okay, well, I want to thank you all for coming. If you have other questions, you can get in touch with any of us or send an email to proposals as in the chat. And we very much hope you will submit, and we will help you be successful in doing this. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.